She didn't cry when her husband left her. That's what made it worse. Because sometimes, when the pain is too deep, tears don't come. They just stay inside, quietly breaking something you can't see. The door closed behind him like it had done 1,000 times before. Same sound. Same movement. But this time, it meant the end of everything. Can you imagine spending your whole life with someone, only to realize one day, you were never really chosen? Julie stood there in the kitchen, her hand still wrapped around a warm coffee mug that had already gone cold. The silence around her felt strange. Too heavy. Like the house itself knew something had just died. She was 70 years old. 70. And in one quiet morning, she had been replaced. Not by time. Not by fate. But by a younger woman. He didn't shout. Didn't even look ashamed enough. Just said things had changed. Said he needed something new. Something lighter. As if Julie had become something old. Something he no longer wanted to carry. And the worst part? He said it like it was normal. Like it was okay. Julie didn't argue. Didn't beg. She just stood there, watching the man she had built her life around, walk out of the door with a suitcase and a version of himself she no longer recognized. 29 years. Gone. In a few sentences. Would you have stopped him? Would you have screamed? Or would you have frozen, just like she did? Hours passed. The house stayed silent. Julie walked through the rooms slowly, touching things like she was seeing them for the first time. The couch where they used to sit. The dining table where birthdays were celebrated. The walls filled with photos that suddenly felt like lies. Everything looked the same. But nothing felt real anymore. That night, she sat alone in the dark. No lights. No TV. Just the quiet sound of her own breathing, and a strange emptiness growing inside her chest. Her mind kept asking one question. Was I ever enough? And that question hurt more than his leaving. But then, something small changed. While searching through an old drawer, her fingers brushed against a faded photograph. She pulled it out slowly. It was her mother, standing in front of an old farm, smiling in a way Julie hadn't seen in years. Her heart tightened. She flipped the photo over, and froze, because written on the back, in her mother's handwriting, were 6 simple words. When everything breaks, come back home. Julie stared at those words for a long time, because deep inside, something didn't feel like a coincidence. It felt like a message, a warning, or maybe an invitation. And Julie had no idea that going back to that farm would uncover a truth that had been buried for decades. The next morning, Julie made a decision she never thought she would make again. She was going back. Back to the place she had spent years trying to forget. Back to the farm her mother left behind. Back to memories she had buried so deep, she thought they were gone forever. But were they ever really gone? Or were they just waiting for a moment like this? Julie packed slowly. Not because she had a lot to take, but because every item she touched reminded her of a life that no longer existed. A sweater he once gifted her. A framed photo she almost threw away, but didn't. Why didn't she throw it away? Was it love, or just habit? By noon, 2 old suitcases sat by the door. The house felt empty already, like it knew she wasn't coming back. Before leaving, Julie took one last look around. This was the home where she had given everything. Her time, her youth, her loyalty. And in the end, it still wasn't enough. So she left. The drive to the farm was longer than she remembered. Roads felt unfamiliar. The silence inside the car felt louder than anything she had ever heard. No music. No phone calls. Just her thoughts. And they weren't kind. What if I can't do this? What if I break even more? What if going back changes nothing? Have you ever felt that kind of fear? The kind that doesn't stop you, but follows you anyway? Hours later, the old dirt road appeared. Julie's grip tightened on the steering wheel. The farm came into view slowly, like a memory returning piece by piece. The house looked smaller than she remembered. Older. Tired. The paint was peeling. The porch leaned slightly to one side. Wild grass had taken over most of the yard. It didn't look like a place someone could start over. It looked like a place people abandoned. Julie stepped out of the car. The air smelled different here. Earthy. Still. Almost like time had slowed down, or maybe stopped completely. But she wasn't alone for long. A neighbor from across the road noticed her arrival. Then another. And another. By evening, the whispers had already started. That's her, right? The one whose husband left her? At her age. What is she even doing here? Julie could feel their eyes. Their judgment. Their quiet laughter hidden behind polite smiles. It stung. More than she expected. For a moment, she almost got back into the car. Almost. But then she looked at the house again. At the broken windows. The worn-out door. The silence that felt strangely familiar. And something inside her shifted. Not confidence. Not yet. But something stronger than fear. She walked up to the front door. Slowly. Her hand paused on the handle. Because deep down, she knew this wasn't just a return. It was a risk. A real one. And as she finally pushed the door open, a cold, unfamiliar sound echoed from somewhere inside the house. Julie froze. Because she was certain of one thing. She hadn't made that sound. Julie didn't move. Not right away. The sound came again. Faint, dragging, almost like something brushing slowly across the wooden floor upstairs. Not loud. Not clear. But enough to make her heart skip in a way she hadn't felt in years. The house was supposed to be empty. So what was that? Her first instinct was simple. Leave. Close the door. Get back in the car and drive until this place became just another bad decision she could blame on grief. But her feet didn't move. Why? Was it fear holding her in place? Or something deeper pulling her forward? Julie stepped inside and shut the door behind her. The click echoed louder than it should have. Dust floated in the air like it had been waiting for someone to disturb it. Another sound. Upstairs. Slow. Uneven. Her throat went dry. "Hello," she called out, her voice softer than she expected. No answer. Of course not. She scanned the room quickly. Nothing looked disturbed. Old furniture covered in sheets. A faded clock on the wall. Her mother's favorite chair still in the same corner. Everything felt frozen in time. But the sound wasn't. It came again. This time, clearer. Julie swallowed hard and reached for the nearest thing she could use to protect herself, a long wooden stick resting near the fireplace. Not much. But it was something. Step by step, she moved toward the staircase. Each step creaked under her weight, loud and sharp in the silence. The air grew colder as she climbed. Not freezing, just enough to feel wrong. Have you ever walked into a place that didn't feel empty, even when it should be? That's what this felt like. At the top of the stairs, the hallway stretched out in front of her. 3 doors. All closed. Except one. The last door on the left. Slightly open. Her mother's sewing room. Julie's grip tightened on the stick as she walked closer. Her breathing slowed, not because she was calm, but because she was trying not to panic. She pushed the door open. Nothing. Just dust. Old curtains. A table covered in fabric scraps. The same smell of lavender her mother used to love. No person. No animal. No broken window. Then what made the sound? Julie stepped inside, scanning every corner carefully. That's when she noticed something strange. The floor. There were marks. Fresh ones. Long, uneven lines. Like something heavy had been dragged across the wood. Her heart started pounding again. She followed the marks slowly. They led, straight to the old wardrobe against the wall. Julie stopped in front of it. She didn't remember it being there when she was younger. Or maybe she just never paid attention. Her hand moved forward, almost without thinking. The wood felt colder than it should. And then, her fingers brushed against something small. Hidden. A tiny metal latch, carved so perfectly into the frame that no one would notice it unless they were looking for it. Julie pulled her hand back instantly. Because suddenly, this didn't feel like just an old house. It felt like a place that had been hiding something. For a very long time. And now, it knew she was here. Julie didn't touch the latch again that night. Not because she forgot about it, but because some doors feel heavier before you even open them. She walked out of the sewing room slowly, closing the door behind her as if that would somehow push the mystery back inside. As if ignoring it could make it disappear. But it didn't. Because even downstairs, even sitting in the quiet living room, she could still feel it. That strange pull. That question hanging in the air. What is hidden up there? Sleep didn't come easy. Every small sound felt louder. The wind brushing against the windows. The old wood settling under the night air. Once, she even thought she heard footsteps again. Or maybe it was just her imagination. Was it? Morning came, but it didn't bring peace. Only reality. Julie stood in the kitchen, staring at an empty shelf where groceries should have been. Her money was running low. What little she had left wouldn't last long. And there was no one to call. No husband. No family nearby. No safety net. Just her, and this house full of memories and questions. Have you ever had to start over, when you didn't even have the strength to begin? Julie stepped outside and looked at the land. It was overgrown. Neglected. Forgotten. Just like her. But something inside her refused to give up completely. Not hope. Not yet. But a quiet refusal to fall any further. She started small. Cleaning the porch first. One corner at a time. Dust. Leaves. Broken wood. It took hours, and by the end, her back ached in ways she hadn't felt in years. Still, she didn't stop. The next day, she moved to the garden. Weeds had taken over everything. Thick roots buried deep in the soil. She pulled them out slowly, one by one, her hands shaking but determined. It wasn't just work. It was survival. Every small task gave her something she hadn't felt since her husband left. Control. But it wasn't easy. People still watched. Still talked. One afternoon, a woman from down the road stopped by, pretending to be friendly. But her words carried something else. You really think you can manage this place alone, at your age? Julie forced a small smile. I don't know yet, she replied. And that was the truth. She didn't know. Every night, doubt came back stronger. What if this is too much? What if I fail here too? What if he was right to leave? Those thoughts, they didn't leave quietly. They stayed. They whispered. But something else stayed too. That latch. That hidden secret upstairs. It kept calling her, in ways she couldn't explain. Days passed. Julie found an old box of her mother's things in the storage room. Inside were recipes, notes, and small tools. Things she could use. She started making jam. Simple at first. Just enough to try. Then she placed a small table near the road with a handwritten sign. Homemade. It felt almost embarrassing. Like she was exposing her struggle to strangers. But she had no other choice. Hours went by. No one stopped. The sun began to set. And just when she thought it was pointless, a car slowed down. A woman stepped out. Bought 2 jars. Smiled. And left. It wasn't much. But it was something. Julie stood there, holding the money in her hand like it meant more than it did. Because it wasn't about the money. It was about proof. Proof that she could still stand. Still try. Still exist. Without him. That night, she returned inside, tired but different. Not stronger. Not yet. But changing. She walked toward the staircase slowly. Her eyes lifted toward the sewing room, toward the hidden latch. Because deep inside, she knew something. The farm wasn't just testing her. It was waiting. And this time, Julie wasn't sure if she was ready to keep ignoring it. That night, Julie stopped running from it. No more delays. No more pretending the farm was just an old, broken place. Because deep down, she knew. Whatever was hidden upstairs wasn't going to stay hidden forever. She picked up a lantern with one hand, and with the other, she held onto the wall as she slowly climbed the stairs. Her body felt tired, but her mind, strangely awake. Every step echoed. Every breath felt louder. The hallway greeted her with the same cold silence. The same still air that didn't feel natural. The sewing room door stood exactly where she had left it, slightly open, waiting. Julie paused at the entrance. Her heart was racing again. What if I find something I can't handle? What if this changes everything? She stepped inside. The room looked the same. Quiet. Empty. But now, it didn't feel harmless anymore. Her eyes moved straight to the wardrobe. And then, to the hidden latch. No hesitation this time. Her hand reached forward, slowly, carefully, like she was touching something alive. Click. The small panel opened again. And there it was. A keyhole. Hidden so perfectly, it was never meant to be found easily. Julie froze for a second. Because now, this wasn't just curiosity anymore. This was a choice. To know, or to walk away. But she had already come too far. She turned and rushed downstairs, her mind racing. Within minutes, she returned holding the old rusted key she had found days earlier behind the barn. Her hands trembled as she inserted it into the lock. For a moment, it didn't move. Then, a soft turn. A heavy click echoed through the room. Julie stepped back instinctively. Because the wardrobe wasn't just a wardrobe. It shifted slightly, revealing a narrow door behind it. Hidden. Sealed. Forgotten. Or maybe, protected. Her breath caught. "Mom, what did you hide here?" she whispered. Slowly, she pushed the door open. A cold wave of air brushed against her face. Inside was a small, hidden room. Dark. Tight. Lined with shelves filled with old boxes, files, and bundles of paper tied with faded ribbons. The air smelled like dust and secrets, like something that had been waiting decades to be seen. Julie stepped inside carefully. Her lantern light flickered across the walls. Boxes. Letters. Documents. All untouched. All preserved. She reached for the nearest bundle and untied it. Inside were letters. Old ones. Written in her mother's handwriting. But they weren't simple letters. They were records. Detailed. Careful. Hidden. Julie read the first one, then another, then another. Her heartbeat started to rise. Because the words didn't make sense at first. Then slowly, they did. These weren't just memories. They were evidence. Land papers. Agreements. Signatures. And something else. Something darker. Forged documents. Stolen ownership. Names she recognized. Her husband's family name, appearing again and again. Julie stepped back. Her mind spinning. No, this can't be. But it was. The farm, the land, even her marriage. It was never just about love. It was planned. Years ago, before she even knew. Her mother had been fighting something quietly, protecting something silently, all this time. Julie's hands shook as she reached deeper into the box. And then she found it. One final envelope. Sealed. With her name written on it. Not recently. But years ago. She stared at it, her breath unsteady. Because somehow, her mother knew this day would come. Julie slowly opened the letter. And as her eyes began to read the first line, her entire world shifted again. Because the truth inside that letter was far bigger than betrayal. Julie read the letter once, then again. And then she stopped, because her hands were shaking too much to continue. She closed her eyes for a second, trying to breathe, trying to slow down the storm building inside her chest. But it didn't slow. It grew. Because the words on that paper weren't just truth. They were everything her mother had known. Not just about the land. Not just about the forged papers. But about the people behind it. About the quiet deal made years ago between her husband's family and others who wanted control over the farm. Julie wasn't chosen by accident. She was chosen because she was connected to something valuable. The marriage wasn't as pure as she believed. At least not from their side. Julie felt something break inside her again. But this time, it wasn't weakness. It was clarity. Have you ever realized that your entire life was built on something you didn't even see? It doesn't destroy you the same way. It changes you. She looked around the hidden room again. All the letters. All the records. Her mother had been protecting this place quietly, alone, carrying a burden Julie never understood while she was alive. Why didn't she say anything? Why did she keep it hidden? Julie's eyes moved back to the letter. There was one line, underlined. If you are reading this, it means the truth finally found you. Her breath caught, because it felt like her mother was speaking to her, across time. Another line. Don't be afraid of what you discover. Be afraid of what happens if you walk away. Julie wiped her tears slowly, because suddenly, everything felt different. The farm wasn't just a place anymore. It was a fight. And for the first time, she wasn't running from it. The next morning, Julie didn't stay hidden. She gathered every document, every letter, every piece of evidence her mother had left behind. Carefully, respectfully, like she was carrying something sacred. Then she drove into town. Her hands were steady now. Not because she wasn't scared, but because fear wasn't in control anymore. She walked into a small law office near the corner of Main Street, a place she had passed 100 times before but never entered. Inside, a woman in her late 60s looked up from her desk. Sharp eyes, calm expression, the kind of person who didn't miss details. Julie placed the box in front of her. I think there's something you need to see. Hours passed. The lawyer read everything. Slowly, carefully, without interruption. Julie sat there, watching every small reaction. A raised eyebrow, a slight pause, a deeper focus. And then finally, the lawyer leaned back. This changes things, she said quietly. Julie's heart skipped. Changes what? The woman looked directly at her. Everything. Those forged documents. They weren't small mistakes. They were crimes. And if proven, they could reverse ownership. Restore the land. Expose everything her husband's family had been hiding for decades. Julie felt something rise inside her. Not anger. Not sadness. Something stronger. Power. For the first time since her husband left, she didn't feel small. She didn't feel abandoned. She felt awake. But just as that feeling settled in, the lawyer added something else. Once this starts, it won't stay quiet. Julie frowned slightly. What do you mean? The woman didn't soften her tone. I mean, they will come back. Julie's chest tightened, because deep down, she already knew who they were. And just as she stepped outside the office, a black car slowly turned the corner and stopped nearby. Julie didn't need to guess, because the man stepping out was someone she thought she would never face again. Julie didn't move. Not when the car door opened. Not when he stepped out. Not even when their eyes met after all those weeks. Time did something strange in that moment. It didn't go forward. It went back. To dinners. to laughter, to quiet mornings that now felt like memories from someone else's life. But then reality returned. And it returned hard. He walked toward her slowly. Careful steps. Like he wasn't sure how close he was allowed to come anymore. "Julie," he said softly. Her name sounded different now. Empty. She didn't respond. What was there left to say? He stopped a few feet away, his hands slightly raised, like he was trying to calm something that wasn't even moving. "I know this looks bad," he began. Julie almost laughed. "Looks bad. That's what he chose. After everything." "Say it properly," she said quietly. He hesitated. Just for a second. And in that second, she saw it. Not guilt. Fear. Real fear. Have you ever looked at someone you loved and realized they're not who you thought they were? That moment changes everything. "I made a mistake," he said quickly. "Things got complicated. The other woman, it wasn't what I expected. And now all this legal mess. We don't need it, Julie. We don't need it." Julie repeated that in her mind, like poison spreading slowly. "You didn't need me either," she replied. Her voice didn't shake. That surprised even her. He took a step closer. "I'm trying to fix things." "No," she said, stopping him. "You're trying to fix what affects you." Silence. Heavy. Sharp. Real. He exhaled, frustration slipping through his calm mask. "You don't understand everything," he said. "This situation, it's bigger than you think. My family. Your family." Julie cut in. Her eyes locked onto his. "Say it clearly." He didn't. Because he couldn't. And that said more than any explanation. Julie reached into her bag and pulled out a folded paper. One of the documents. One of the truths. She held it up, just enough for him to recognize it. His face changed instantly. There it was. No more pretending. No more control. "You knew," she said. Not a question. A statement. He didn't answer. Didn't deny it either. And that silence confirmed everything. The marriage. The land. The lies. All connected. Julie felt her chest tighten again. But this time, she didn't break. She stood stronger. "Do you know what hurts the most?" she asked. He looked at her, unsure. "Not that you left," she continued. "Not even that you lied." She stepped closer now. So close he couldn't look away. "It's that I defended you, while you were planning around me." That landed. Hard. He swallowed. Tried to speak. But nothing came out. Because there was nothing left to hide. Finally, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out an envelope. "A settlement," he said quickly. "We can end this quietly. No court. No exposure. You take this, and we move on." Julie stared at the envelope. Then at him. And for a brief second, the old version of her almost considered it. The one who avoided conflict. The one who chose peace over truth. But that version was gone. She stepped back. Shook her head slowly. No. One word. But it carried everything. His expression hardened. "You don't want to do this," he warned. Julie didn't flinch. "Too late," she replied. Another silence. But this one felt different. Final. He looked at her one last time. Not with love. Not even with anger. But with something colder. Calculation. And just before he turned to leave, he said something that made Julie's heart stop for a second. "You think you found everything?" He paused. Then added quietly. "But you haven't even scratched the surface." Julie stood frozen. Because deep down, something told her. He wasn't lying. Julie stood alone in the field as the sun slowly dipped behind the hills. The same land, that once felt abandoned, now felt alive. Not because everything was perfect, but because she had changed. His words still echoed sometimes. You haven't even scratched the surface. And maybe he was right. Because the truth didn't end in court. It unfolded, slowly. Over weeks, over months. More records came out. More names surfaced. People who once stayed silent started speaking. Some out of guilt. Some out of fear. Some because they finally realized the truth was no longer something they could hide. And Julie, she stayed steady through all of it. Even when it got messy. Even when it hurt again. Because now, she wasn't searching for answers. She was standing in them. Have you ever reached a point in life where running stops making sense? That's where Julie was. The farm was legally hers again. Every piece that had been taken, returned. Not as a gift, but as something earned. Something fought for. And with it, something else returned too. Her voice. She repaired the house slowly. Not rushing. Not trying to prove anything to anyone. Just rebuilding, piece by piece. The broken porch was fixed first. Then the walls. Then the rooms that once felt too quiet started breathing again. The land followed. At first, the soil resisted. Dry. Stubborn. Unforgiving. But Julie didn't give up. Day after day, she worked it. Hands in the dirt. Sweat on her skin. Silence around her. And then, something shifted. Green returned. Life returned. The same ground that once looked empty began to grow again. Just like her. People noticed. But this time, they didn't whisper. They watched. Respect replaced judgment. Curiosity replaced doubt. Some even came to help. Others came just to stand there and see what strength looks like when it doesn't ask for attention. Julie didn't tell her full story. She didn't need to, because it was written everywhere around her. In the walls she repaired. In the soil she healed. In the way she stood, without fear. One evening, she walked toward the old barn. The sky was painted in soft gold and fading light. In her hand, that same photograph. Her mother, standing in front of this very farm. Julie looked at it for a long moment. Then she smiled. Not a perfect smile. Not a careless one. A real one. The kind that only comes after you've lost everything and found something deeper. I understand now, she whispered softly. Because she did. Her mother didn't leave her a place. She left her truth. A truth that waited until Julie was strong enough to face it. Sometimes, life doesn't break you to end your story. It breaks you to remove everything that was never real. To strip away illusions. To leave you standing with nothing but what matters. And in that emptiness, you finally see clearly. Julie once thought she returned to the farm because she had nowhere else to go. But standing there, under the quiet sky, she realized something. She didn't come back because she was lost. She came back because this was the only place where she could finally become who she was meant to be.